Welcome to Films According to Chris Wyatt presents Sequels Re-Examined. In this series, I take a look at film sequels that have a less than stellar reputation. I take one more look at them and decide, were they victims of unfair hype or unfair comparisons, or are they as bad as we remember them? For our first episode, The Rage Carrie 2. The original Carrie was released in 1976. Based on the novel by legendary horror writer Stephen King, the film was directed by Brian De Palma and starred Sissy Spacek, Piper Laurie, Amy Irving, William Katt, and a young John Travolta, making his film debut.
How's it looking there?
It told the story of Carrie Wyatt, a shy teenage girl who discovers that she has telekinetic powers after having her first period. She's also bullied by her classmates and tormented by her abusive religious fanatic mother. When she falls victim to a cruel prank on the night of her senior prom, Carrie finally snaps and uses her newfound abilities to get revenge on her bullying peers. Considered something of a genre classic, Carrie boasted a compelling story, some creative cinematography, strong direction, and a genuinely horrifying finale. It also had some great performances. Both Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie received Oscar nominations. That's a rarity for the horror genre.
It's nothing to do with Satan, Mama. It's me. Me.
I liked it. I liked it.
While the 70s vibes are fairly dated, the message remains strong. It's actually one of my all-time favorite movies. It struck me as somewhat odd to even make a sequel to Carrie, especially 23 years after the original. Even though sequels are something of a staple in the horror genre, Carrie had a very definitive ending and little reason to continue the story, mainly since most of the characters had died by the film's end. Nevertheless, we did get a sequel, and here's what we got. The Rage Carrie 2 stars Emily Bergel as Rachel Lang, who, like the original Carrie, is also a teenage girl with telekinetic abilities. She's also, like the original Carrie, tormented by her classmates. She is also supported by one of the school staff members, and also has an abusive parent, and also is befriended by one of the school's most popular jocks, and yeah, you can see where this is going. This film is basically a cheap rehash of the original. Okay, well, to its credit, it's not a total rehash. It does actually modernize things and does try to give it its own unique look. Unfortunately, that's really not much of a compliment. The whole thing just looks pretty cheap, shallow, and like any other generic horror film from the 90s. It's also not helped by the fact that the film's acting is pretty awful. Emily Bergel once in a while does show some real talent as Rachel Lang, but whether it be because of bad direction or a weak script, she's brought down with the film and fails to shine. Jason London plays her love interest and is about as bland as they get.
It's the season opener. There's gonna be some scouts there. I need you. Good luck.
Yeah, that's real range right there. Everyone else is pretty forgettable. They just feel like any other generic 90s horror character, anything you would see in most slasher films of that day. Amy Irving returns as Sue Snell, the only returning cast member from the original film. She's basically there, goes through the motions, gets her paycheck, and is quickly forgotten. The director, Kat Shea, also made some really questionable stylistic choices, namely how she periodically switches to these black and white, grainy kind of shots for no apparent reason. It also doesn't help by the fact that it keeps showing archive footage from the original Carrie. Granted, that actually does give it some semblance as an actual sequel, but it keeps reminding you that you could be watching the original and much better film instead. I guess they wanted to try to basically tell the same story as Carrie, only with a little bit more of a modern take. Unfortunately, now the film feels just as dated as the original. The whole film just reeks of 90s cheese, and even this scene. Tell me this doesn't remind you of Scream.
Who is this?
Or are you wearing a little red towel?
Yeah, very much a product of its time as well. The only real positive thing I can say about this film is that the ending does have its moments. Once it gets to the finale, while it still feels really too familiar compared to the original, it does have its moments. It has some cool money shots and there's some decent gore, and at the very least it's probably the most interesting thing to happen in the film. unfortunately that's not enough to save it. Hell, even the title is stupid. The Rage Carrie 2. What does that even mean? I guess the main character is full of rage? I don't know. Actually, that title makes me wonder if this was even ever supposed to be a sequel to Carrie in the first place. Makes me wonder if the film just started off as a movie called The Rage, and some studio execs thought, this is really similar to Carrie, maybe we can just call it a sequel to Carrie and make more money off of it. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened. Final verdict, is The Rage Carrie 2 a misunderstood sequel? No. No, it is not. Flat acting, questionable direction, and an uninspired script all hold back this very unnecessary sequel. There was really no reason to make a sequel to Carrie in the first place. The first film said all it needed to and had no reason to continue the story. In the end, this film was nothing more than a cheap cash grab to try to capitalize off the success of a much better film. My advice, skip this one, watch the original instead. See you next time!